Hi everyone. Welcome to Tuesday. I've got a bit to go over with you today, so if you could make sure you listen closely to today's work. I'm going to go over the step back in time with you in detail. Um, you've got 3 days to write an autobiography, and at the end of each day, that's Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, you should record on Seesaw what you have done to get that work done. So we'll go and have a look at this slide deck that Mrs. Boundy made. Okay, so you've already completed part one of your becoming a pioneer because you have done the event. So your event should be finished and it should look like a report, preferably a newspaper report, but that should be completed by now. Now, this week you've got a new job. You've got to write about your pioneer, the person who features in your main event, but you have to write it as an autobiography. So you think about um, all the work you've done about biographies, but this is different because this time you have to pretend you're the pioneer and you're telling your story. So you've written an autobiography about your own life, but this time you're going to write an autobiography about your pioneer. So the next first step will be, I guess, on Tuesday, today, you'll need to do your research and make sure you've got lots of information about your pioneer that you can put into an autobiography. So remember, you're pretending to be them and using their life story. Okay, so when you have um, done your day's work, use Seesaw to record your diary. So we want a video clip of you saying, hello, today's Tuesday, and I have got all the information I need to write my autobiography. I found 3 really good websites. All of them were for kids, and now I understand exactly what happened in my person's life. I've learned that it is a good idea to look up the websites for kids because the language is easier. I've also learned it's a good idea to print things out and highlight them. So, whatever you've learned, you need to say in that. What evidence do you have to show you used your time wisely? I've the evidence I have is I've got a stack of ideas and a whole lot of um, information to use, and I did that in about an hour. So I think I used my time well. Then it says explain your problems and how you solve them. I had a problem with one of my websites. Um, it seemed to have a lot of good information, but I didn't understand all of the words. So I got my dad to read over it with me and explain some of the words. So that's how I solved that problem. My personal strengths that allowed me to be successful today. I was resourceful because I was able to do my research and find some useful information, and I was resourceful because I was able to get someone to help me when I needed it. So tomorrow I will write my biography, my autobiography, and um, hopefully I'll get that all done. Um, and that will be all complete. So that's what you need to do for that page. Now that didn't people didn't do that very well last week. So could you please make sure you do that? Um, you already guys already know who your pioneer is. We're a bit ahead in that regard. Here's a checklist of things you should include. Make sure you use the checklist because we'll use it to mark your work. This is a major assignment. I think that might be, yep, that's there. Sorry, I'll go back. Yep, but that's all. You can read that yourself. Make sure it's all punctuated and everything. Um, as it says here, make sure use your 3 days. You don't have to do it all today on Tuesday. Do your research today. Sort out how you're going to do it. Highlight good things in your work. Think about rewording. Do not copy and paste. I will know. So if you know that you're doing 3 days of writing, you should be able to realize that it's a fairly decent amount of work that's expected. So I'm looking at maybe 500 or 600 words to have done this properly. 8 to 10 paragraphs. Some pictures, maps, maybe. So it's got to be a pretty decent piece of work. So I've got one here that is an example. You can have a look at it and see how a good autobiography written by a 5/6 student should look like. This is a high standard one, and this is what you could aim for. This one is about George Morrison, who you won't have heard of. He's commonly known as Chinese Morrison. I'll read it to you because eventually this is what you have to do as well. The autobiography of George Chinese Morrison. Now, notice that it's written as though it is him, even though he's been dead for a very long time. Greetings, one and all. I'd like to tell you about my short but adventure filled life. I'm not hugely famous, but I think you'll agree I did some amazing things. My name is George Morrison, but everyone just called me Chinese because of my work and travels in the Orient. Way back in 1862, I arrived with a bump in the town of Geelong. My father was a serious man, the principal of Geelong College. He expected me to study and become a doctor. Here's a nice picture. Struth, I thought to myself, that's not for me. I decided to go for a walk instead. 750 miles later, that's 1,200 kilometres to you, I ended up in Adelaide. For most of the way, I didn't see another soul, except some native families. I wrote of my adventures, and believe it or not, they were published in the newspaper. All of a sudden, I was a famous adventurer. At just 17, I canoed down the whole length of the Murray River, all the way to the sea, and then I walked back to Geelong. I enjoyed a good long walk. All this walking was good for my health, and I became tall and strong and handsome. Well, that's what my mum said. I was only 18 when I walked up to Queensland. I discovered something very disturbing. You guys in the 2020s will be shocked, but maybe not surprised. I decided to do some work on a fishing boat, but I soon realised the men on that boat, and lots of other boats too, were up to no good. They were kidnappers. But wait, no, they didn't kidnap me. They were kidnapping Indigenous men and forcing them to work on the boats. They wouldn't release them and they would beat them up if they tried to escape. They called this blackbirding. Did you know that the settlers made our Indigenous brothers slaves? I bet you didn't. Not a nice part of our history. I wrote about my adventures in Queensland and the newspapers published my stories. This turned out to be the best thing I ever did. My proudest achievement was that after I told everyone about the blackbirding, the government put it to a stop. When I was 20, I walked from the Gulf of Carpentaria all the way to Melbourne. That's the same walk that killed Burke and Wills. They were soft. I did it in 123 days, and I found it a very pleasant excursion. Although my dad was still not impressed, the papers were paying me good money to go on adventures. What a lucky man. There's a map of the walk. My next expedition was into Papua New Guinea. I explored deeper and further than any European, but the natives screamed at me. They called me White Ghost and speared me in the gut. I got out of there and took a boat to Scotland, where they removed the spearhead at last. Nearly 4 months later, while I was recovering, I completed my medical degree, so my parents were finally pleased with me. I worked as a doctor in Ballarat for a while, but then my itchy feet took me to China, where I walked 5,000 kilometres and worked as a reporter for the London Times. I also did a bit of spying on China for the British government. While I was in China in 1900, there was an uprising, a rebellion. Some Chinese people decided they wanted all foreigners out of China, and they killed anyone who wouldn't leave. I got caught up in this battle and ended up killing 6 Chinese men who had killed some Chinese Christians. My last adventure was a long bicycle ride. I rode 6,000 kilometres across Russia. Then I went back to China and helped them settle down after the rebellion. I was lucky enough to marry a lovely girl called Jenny, and we had 3 sons. I started getting ill in about 1915. There was something wrong with my pancreas. I retired to England where all the best doctors were, but sadly they couldn't save me and I died in 1920 at the age of 58. I had thousands of books and maps that I collected in China. My sons offered these to Japan and they took my collection and started a library in Tokyo and named it after me. Okay, so that's an example, and then there are the websites listed as well. So as you can see, what have we got? I don't know how many words, but do I know how to do a word count on this? Yes, I do. Well, that's 736, and you'll agree that that one has told uh, Chinese Morrison's life story very thoroughly, and it is in the first person as you are asked. So that's a pretty big challenge for you guys, but I think you can do it. Uh, it will be the people who read the instructions and watch this clip who do the best work as always. I find that the people who are not looking at the instructions or not watching the clips, you're actually making the work harder for yourself because then you do it wrong or you leave parts out, and then I have to send it to you and you have to do it again anyway. So you may as well listen to the instructions and watch the videos. You don't end up saving yourself time by not watching. Um, okay, so anything else for Tuesday? You've got continuing with the maths. Someone said they couldn't open it or couldn't do something. Was that you, Callum? If you're still having trouble, let me know. Now, look, if you want to make this Holy Spirit wind sock, it's pretty fun, but I'm not I don't really know how to make stop motions. So